advertising.
Oh, see, here we are. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board. It's October 27th, and it is our 6th meeting of the fiscal year. I'm to remind everybody that this meeting is being both recorded and broadcast live. My name is Emily Innes. I'm the chairman. I'll ask the other members to introduce themselves.
Alex Whiteside.
Ed Duffy.
Bernie Lynch.
Peter Jackson.
Diane Colligan, secretary.
And the town planner, Bill Clark, will be joining us momentarily. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for October 13th, 2011. I think there have been a couple of changes back and forth on these. So you should have the final copy in your packets.
Item 2,
Item 2, yes?
line 3,
Mm-hmm.
Central Avenue area parking issues. I would strike issues and reverse area and parking so that it reads Central Avenue parking area.
Okay.
Well, a parking area seems more like a parking lot or something. This is to deal with the whole district, I think.
It was to deal with the whole district, and she was bringing up specific concerns, so I would at least put either issues or concerns in there.
So you could say parking in the Central Avenue area.
We could do
Ooh,
that.
how about that?
And that way we don't have issues twice. Perfect. Everybody agree to that?
Yep.
Any other
And
changes?
I have a, you remember that initially these minutes said that they were going to plant vegetables in the planting boxes to sort of spruce up the
They did mention vegetables.
area.
Yes.
So it indicated to me that arborvitae as well as seasonal plants.
Okay. I think they mentioned herbs and vegetables. All right, so seasonal plantings or plants. Any other changes?
Where is that?
Oh, 4,
Oh,
1, 2, 3,
7
4,
lines
5.
down.
4.
Yeah, 6 down.
As well as seasonal plantings. You got that, Diane?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else? Do I have them? Oh, no, I see some people are still reading.
I move they be approved as amended.
Do you have a second?
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Excellent. The next item on our agenda are the next meetings, which will be November 10th. And then I am proposing that instead of meeting on Thanksgiving, we might meet November 22nd, which is the Tuesday before. Would that work for everybody? I mean, unless you'd rather meet on Thanksgiving, but I don't think we're actually allowed to. It being
Leftovers,
a,
you can bring some leftovers in.
national holiday. Yeah, really, we
You're
could
a
all
great
have
cook, I
turkey and
understand.
stuffing. So November 22nd?
Diane and I have previous plans. We're not available,
Yeah, I
We're going
do
to do the
too.
Wednesday?
no, on that Thursday.
Oh, and then Thursday. Okay, so we'll not do Thanksgiving then.
How about the 21st? Monday.
21st, which is the Monday. Anybody have any objection to the 21st? No? Yes? No? Maybe? All right. So November 21st, and then we're going to talk later on as we discuss 597 Randolph Avenue and the timeline to the special town meeting as to whether or not we will need a meeting on November 3rd. So I have a new timeline to give to you, but we will leave that for that particular item. All right, next item on the agenda is Citizens Speak. It's the point at which anybody who wishes to bring something before the board is welcome to speak to us. I will say that we have 3 other items on the agenda. 597 Randolph Avenue. We have the public hearing for 95 Elliott Street, and we have new business for 66 Spruce Street. So if you want to hold any discussion of those items off until they're relevant places, that would be great. If you have anything else, or if you can't wait until those items come up, you're welcome to come forward now. Anybody want to speak?
597, the St. Elizabeth's property?
Yes, it is. So, and we have a public hearing. It's next on our agenda, but we have a public hearing in 2 minutes. So we're going to take up the public hearing first, and then we'll come back to 597. So, anything else? No one? All right. In that case, why don't I ask the people who are here for 95 Elliott Street to start setting up, By the time you're ready, we'll be ready. And while we wait, I will say that I went to the Southern New England APA, American Planning Association Conference last week. It was very, very interesting. And I'll report on that at a later date. So come forward. You're 1 minute away. By the time you set up, we'll be at 6:40.
Good evening, I'm Attorney Bob Sheffield.
All right.
I'm pleased to represent Dan Kerrigan, who has plans to open the restaurant at 95 Elliott Street. I submitted a draft decision to the board on the site plan approval, and we have had various iterations of it, and I think that it's in final form for consideration by the board tonight. With me is Dan Kerrigan.
Good evening.
Good evening. So does anybody have any questions on the final draft that we received this afternoon?
Is the public hearing still
This
open,
public
or
hearing
did we
is,
close
we
it?
have not yet closed the public hearing. So that's why I'm asking the board if they have questions first. I will ask the public for their comments, if there are any further comments.
Do you have plans for attachment and approval on this?
Yes, we have. We submitted them all to the board, and the most recent plan was the revision of the parking to reflect the suggestions that you made at the last public hearing.
Okay, so we haven't seen those yet.
I believe they're being handed out now. Is that correct?
Yes,
There
they're
is some
being
here,
handed
I
out
think.
now.
And those are incorporated here somewhere?
Yes, they are. They're incorporated,
That's
I believe, as item,
All this stuff in the second paragraph is incorporated into the decision.
yes.
Thank you. We went haywire, apparently.
And that includes the revised parking plan to reflect your suggestions and concerns.
Do you want to, either you or Bill want to walk us through the revised parking plan?
Yep. Thanks. I brought it to the fire chief. He had no issues with either plan. His comment is, I don't fight fires from a parking lot, I fight them from the street. He goes, worst case, if I brought it in there, a truck, it would go in and it wouldn't be up against the building. It would be that the ladder would take the gun and put the gun over the building, not the truck. When I gave it to Mr. Lynch, his comment was Dan had actually given me another plan that put two cars parallel to the sidewalk. And his comment was that the first car could only get in and out of that space by parallel parking, and it would be in front of the driveway, and he didn't want it in front of the exit there. He said, turn the two cars. So if you look at the plan now, it has 17 coming straight into the, parallel to the sidewalk, because that's something you drive straight into. Gives you room behind it to back up, and it takes two cars and angle parks them. So there's 17, 18, 19. What I didn't get on Dan's plan yet is to take the dumpsters and put the dumpsters all the way to that back corner, and that allows you to take 14 and 15 and slide them over so that they're in front of the dumpster, not in front of the driveway. So it makes the plan work.
Yes.
That covered all of Mr. Lynch's.
So we
other
don't
Mr.
have yet
Lynch.
a plan to
The only one I
approve,
had
but
was
the-
this one, and Dan has it on his phone. He just showed me the same thing that I did here, the architect. But I had already done this, we'd already talked about it, this is what went to the architect, and the architect agreed.
I don't think
And
we've
then
ever had
you
a
talked
plan
about
submitted by
changing it
Tom.
again.
If Dan emails it to me now, I'll go print it accordingly.
No, I mean, for us to sign a copy, it should be the approved plan, and you said then you
Email
talked about a
electronic
different
copy. Email it to me now and show him the picture right now.
Well, I
So
don't
we
need to
can
see the
stick a
picture right
carrot
now.
in saying as amended, as amended,
As in-
Yeah.
as
But
amended.
then we'll get a plan, that's my point, is we'll get a plan that
Yes.
reflects both this stuff and what you just talked about
Yes.
moving
Moving the
spaces.
dumpster and the space.
Yes.
And that will be the one that is attached to the approval.
Yes.
Ed, you had a question?
Not on this plan, but on the conditions.
Yes.
Back page number 5. Smoking.
Yes.
I would change that. We need smoking, comma, electronic entertainment, including television, and music will not be allowed on the terrace or patio. I'll say it again. Smoking, comma, electronic entertainment, including television, and music will not be allowed on the terrace or patio.
Do you have any objection to that?
No objection whatsoever.
Smoking, electronic entertainment,
Smoking, comma, electronic entertainment, including television,
including.
and music will not be allowed.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nice and quiet over there.
Bernie, do you have
No.
anything? Pete?
No?
Okay. Alex, do you have any other changes?
What is the date of the plan you just given? Is that October 11th?
The revision
as
will be
amended?
today.
17th. This one stated it's the 17th.
So that's 10/17, so it will be dated today, the new plan.
It will be dated today.
Okay.
So
So
that-
we'll change 5, site plan dated October 27th.
No, well,
Is that the
no,
one you're looking at?
it's a letter, oh, okay, relevant, and site plan.
5 is going to change to 27.
Okay. So you all see that on the first page?
27.
Second paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. We've got and 5, site plan dated October, and that will become 27
Instead of the 11th.
instead of the 17th. The 11th is the letter from the engineering company.
I'd be 11th on.
So go further down that line. All right.
27.
Okay.
Okay.
1, 2, 3,
Now, since we've had a
Six.
new
6.
element of the parking,
Okay.
and the
I'll
public
make
hearing is not
changes
yet.
as you.
Yeah, we need to take public comments. So if there are no further questions from the board.
I just have a question on the small plan.
Yes.
Is there one way in and one way out to the parking area?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else from board members? All right, then I'm happy to take any public comment on 95 Elliott. Going once? Okay. Can we get those changes made? All right. And then we'll sign them.
Well, shall we vote and see if
Oh,
we've got the necessary votes to
Well, I thought they
them?
could make the changes while we were closing the public hearing, but yes, we could close the public hearing first and then have our votes.
Just to see if I mean,
If
no
there
one,
are more changes to be made?
well, no,
all right.
whether or not people support the document.
Fair enough. In that case, I'll accept a motion to close the public
So
hearing.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Wait a minute, you're going to close the,
Public
You have to
Public
close the
hearing.
public hearing
and
first.
then you're going to hear from the audience?
No, I've just requested, nobody wanted to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Second.
Any other discussion on closing the public hearing? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, any further discussion on the site plan approval document that's in front of us?
I think we should have Bill make the changes to the site plan dated October 27th, which is going to reflect the
Earlier discussion?
earlier discussion. And Mr. Duffy's, do you have Mr. Duffy's?
Do.
Okay. So we'll,
We will await your changes.
we've
can vote.
closed the,
Hearing, we could have a
We can
discussion,
vote
go to
approval.
vote.
why don't we, I move that we approve the site plan approval as
Amended.
amended.
Excellent. Do we have a
Second.
second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I want to take this opportunity to compliment the planning board. I've never seen a project of this significance go through this quickly. And it was through the cooperation of the client, the diligence of the town planner, and the active involvement of the planning board that made this possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would also like to compliment the applicant for getting in all of his information to us complete and on time. We greatly appreciate how responsive you were.
Well, thank you very much.
Should we compliment the attorney too? Who was
Well, he did write the draft decision.
Yes, he
so
did.
He did, yes. I think we should pass on a compliment
we should.
to
We should compliment him for complimenting us.
you. Yes,
Can we quote you?
yes.
In that case, I think we should also compliment Milton residents for many, many years, the Fallon family.
That's an excellent idea. This will be a
All right.
fantastic addition to this part of town.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Sign
you all
those
very much.
documents when they come to us.
Right, absolutely. So, in the meantime, why don't we take up, the A&R should not take particularly long. Now what? Yeah, see? There you go. That's just what I was going to say.
Do we have the plan? I don't know that I've seen it.
You haven't seen it?
It's
It's in your packet.
Yes, it's in the.
So we're going to take up the
very last
A&R for
page.
66 Spruce Street. Apparently, the engineer is stuck in traffic for 597 Randolph Avenue anyway, so we need to hear from him. And I believe we have Mr. Collins. Why don't you come up and join us? Introduce yourself for the,
My
Yeah.
name's Chris Collins, and just trying to get approval for this 66 Spruce Street, an A&R, I believe it's called. Do you need to see the original here?
yeah, that's a
Okay.
Mylar. We'll need to,
Sign that.
if we're going to sign it tonight, we'll need to sign that, so.
Or Mr. Clerk can sign it. for the
Or
board.
he can sign it for the board if necessary. So why don't you walk us through?
Well, more or less,
What's
it's
happening?
pretty much just a straight cut right through the middle. There's an
Okay.
existing house here. This is the house at 66 Spruce Street on the corner of Lyman Road. And the whole lot, I think, is 15,368. It's going to make this corner lot 7,500 square feet. And the new lot proposed here, the garage will be removed, and that'll be like 7847. And it's 78 frontage here, and then I believe it's 75 or 90, depends on which way you look at that, on the corner. And, yeah, so just a straight line right down the middle there.
Okay.
And we're just planning on selling this house here and building a new house here.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, as you can see, the house is right on the property line.
Mhm.
Yeah, the house was built, I think, in 1911, before Lyman Road was even there. In fact, I had a problem with the title for this. Originally, this showed this as 4 lots and 20-something thousand square feet still on the title, which the other lot was Lyman Road. I guess it wasn't even there back in, I think, the 30s or somewhere thereabouts.
Usually on the signature block, there is a recitation that when the town planner signs it, it means that subdivision approval is not required.
Okay.
It's usually recited in the signature block, and your engineer should have the, or your land surveyor should have the proper
And it-
language.
and
But
it-
it's the stuff that appears on all A&R
Okay.
plans.
So he'll have to add that to
An
the
additional
Mylar.
block?
Yeah, An
Okay.
additional block,
Okay.
so,
Separate from this one should be here as well?
yes.
Well, it'll be part of this block.
But he means we still need to have this,
Right, and
Yes.
because, I mean, there clearly is a zoning violation, which you point out as something dating from way back.
Just one question. What's the age of Spruce Street? Looking at this, I envision that Spruce Street was added, and the adding of Spruce Street made it non-conforming.
Yeah, I believe that's what, I have a picture that the woman that, her family lived there since the house was built, and she just recently passed away. And there was nothing there, just grass and dirt.
So when the town took the street, there's probably some notation someplace.
Well,
But they made this poor house in violation by,
Well, it's not only in violation,
It's in the record.
but as I look at it, it actually, part of the house is on Spruce Street.
yes, it is.
Right.
Right.
On the sidewalk.
So,
So the town probably laid the street out wrong.
Sorry, you
well,
said it
no,
was right
I
on the
mean, this is
sidewalk?
Yeah,
the
it's right on the
surveyor, the
sidewalk.
surveyor has,
Town surveyor.
no, the C.S. Kelly Land Surveyors of Pembroke has shown that the
He's drawing
part
this
of the
plan.
house is on the town's land.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're
On
saying,
the
right.
sidewalk, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it actually goes right over the
actually a-
boundary onto,
Sure it is.
yeah.
It's actually like
It
a,
actually goes over the boundary.
Right.
yeah, it's a three-season porch, basically. I don't know if they show a little bit of a line there. It's
Yeah.
probably like 8 feet. of a
Well, I
Seem to look at the plan that drew the street when the town accepted it. I assume it's a public, yeah, it's 40-foot public, it says, so
Right.
someone loves stuff someplace. and
Well,
not-
so what
not
did
Christopher
they
Kelly.
say? I mean, you obviously have a problem in that part of your house is on the town's land, the town's street.
What did the, who say?
That's what the plan shows.
Oh, no, that's the existing house that's been
I
there.
understand. What, the existing house is on, part of it is on the town's land.
Correct.
Or vice versa.
No, not vice versa.
No, definitely, the house is definitely on town land. You can see how it goes over the line there? So it actually physically crosses over the
Yes,
line
right
onto the
onto the
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
Let's,
I say stay away.
let's defer this until our next meeting because I don't know what I don't think that we can approve a plan with a house on town land.
How old is the house?
1911.
All right, so the house was here, and then the town laid out the street, and looks like they might have laid it out the wrong way.
Either
Exactly.
that or the street was laid out and they built the house
Was it paper street
in
before?
the street. Well, I mean, we don't know.
What way could you rectify it, though, Al? You move
I
the house or
mean,
move the street?
Look,
How could you
look,
rectify it?
Look,
I don't think we have any jurisdiction to
it
move the
seems
house.
to me that it requires a little bit of thought. And I have seen this plan for 5 minutes, and I haven't been able to give it the little bit of thought that I'd like to give to it.
You said this was a three-season porch that's
Yeah,
going
it's
onto
not,
the sidewalk?
it's not finished. That's where the entryway is, basically, yeah.
Do you know, so was that part of the original house, or was that
Oh,
built
yeah.
later? Okay.
That was, yeah, it's been, from what I've seen of pictures, it's always been like that.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see a picture of this.
I
or
can
go by
actually,
it.
yeah, I do have a picture of, I don't have it with me, but I have
Right.
a picture of the house.
So
when
could
it
you
was
bring that
built.
to our next
Yeah.
meeting and
Oh, yeah.
maybe show us some
All right.
documentation? Okay. So our next meeting is November 10th.
I'm
We
not sure how
have-
that materially affects the subdivision though. Because, I mean, both lots are conforming, you know, with the code, so I don't think that affects that. It's kind of a historical, interesting thing, and maybe the town should volunteer to pay part of the real estate taxes for that portion of it, but
I don't think it affects the subdivision.
Right.
I'm wondering if what you're worried about is that if we knowingly approve a plan, because when we approve this, we're not just approving the new lot, we're essentially approving the new old lot. You know, we're approving two
Oh.
new lots. And on one of them, we're approving a lot that has a house that's crossed over onto town land. Does that open us up to anything? And I don't know the answer to that, which is why I'm posing it for others to debate. So, is that your question? Are we
Well,
liable if we approve a
usually,
building that's on
If they
town
have
land?
adequate frontage, you can endorse the plan. It just is that this is unusual. I mean, if this had just been a zoning violation rather than an encroachment, or a zoning violation that is an encroachment,
Yeah,
Question on terminology, Al. Isn't it just a non-conforming situation rather than a zoning violation? Isn't it just a non-conforming
no, it's a
situation?
zoning violation and it's a non-conforming, and therefore it's a zoning violation.
but it's not a simple zoning
But I
violation,
mean,
in
the
that it's not just a
plan, the
setback
plan
that's an
could be
issue.
deemed to show the house
Right,
as there's a question of whether or not we're giving away
right,
that little, whether that's what the plan shows.
right, because if it were bang on the lot line, then we'd just say it was a zoning violation that didn't incorporate the frontage setback. But in fact, because it's over the lot line, it's actually, are we approving it as a taking of town land? Is that
Or
what you're essentially saying?
something like that.
Yes, okay.
I mean, I just think that it needs a little bit of thought. And I
Actually
don't
double
think that it's an impossible situation, but to solve.
Okay.
Yeah.
But,
Would that be more of a, also a situation where if you were gonna try to change the house, then you'd have to deal with that as well, right? If someone were to tear it down, they'd have
If
to.
they were to tear it down, they couldn't build another one on the.
Right where
Exact
that
same
is.
On the
footprint,
right of
yeah,
way.
exactly.
But they think, is it a possible tear down?
That's possible. The house is livable. There's a new heating system, new hot water heater.
Is it possible to push the porch back a foot?
I don't know, honestly. I'm not even sure, now that I think of it, if the second floor overhangs that. It's like a bungalow. I don't know if the second floor comes out that far or not. I'm not positive. But if it's just the porch, I wouldn't see it as being a big deal at all, you know?
But because it has the actual entryway to the house. it
Yeah,
makes it a
but
little
then there's another
trickier.
door
Okay,
that would be facing Spruce Street as well. The other one comes in from the side here onto the porch.
yeah.
But I know there's no heat out there or anything of that
Right.
nature.
Oh, I see where the I hadn't.
You were looking for your box, and it was
Right,
actually
I
in the
was
title,
looking,
yeah.
it's right on the title. All right, well, I suggest that we defer this.
Okay, we have a
Next
suggestion to
meeting.
defer it. Any other comments? Yes,
Might
Bernie?
we give him some guidance to go up and see the building inspector like tomorrow? and
Okay.
Just to see what his thoughts are?
Okay,
Yeah, that might be helpful.
all right. What should I ask him in particular? Just show him this and,
Just ask him what he thinks
What to do?
what the
Okay.
solution is.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. Find out if he has any issues. He may not have an
okay,
issue with it because
Alright.
it is, pre-existing. And then just report back to us on that.
okay. And he
So-
might want to go over and look at it at some
Right.
point or whatever.
Exactly,
You can
Okay.
get the date as to when the street was accepted,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Hope it's
That might add
after
some
the house was
information.
built.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think there'll be, from what I'm hearing from the rest of you, I don't see that there's an issue with approving the division
okay,
of the land. It's
Right.
just making sure that we haven't inadvertently done something
Right.
else by approving that tiny, tiny little triangle there, so.
But it may be that we're just going to have to say the house encroaches.
Right. Right.
I mean, we may have to add some language to
right,
Yeah,
right.
the
Mylar.
the bottom here.
all right, so our
His
next
name
meeting
is
is
Joe
the-
Pondek.
Yes, I've talked to him before, yeah. I actually called him at first.
Our next meeting is the 10th. I think we've got something at 6:40, so why don't we put you on for, say, 7 o'clock or so? and
Okay,
then If we get
November
done
10th.
earlier, we'll bring you.
Okay.
If you're here at 6:30, we'll maybe be able to take you quickly.
Okay, excellent. All right.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
So 6:40, November
10th.
10th.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So, Bill, because the house is partially on town land, we have asked him to talk to the building inspector and come back on the town.
We just want to make sure that we're not inadvertently approving something that takes town land.
We're not, the house is already there. The house is pre-existing.
We
But
know.
it is on town land.
It is,
Okay.
but you're approving a lot that's pre-existing.
Well, but does it include the house?
But by dividing the lot, we're essentially approving 2 new lots. And we just want to make sure that we have dotted our i's and crossed our t's.
And that the building inspector is
His
happy
comment,
with it.
Oh, so you've spoken to the
I already
building
did.
inspector? Oh, okay.
He was already to the
Don't
Mr.
go
point.
off
Collins,
yet.
hold on, we're continuing the
He
discussion.
was
here.
already there that all you're doing is approving the lots, you're not approving the house.
Okay,
But does the
But the
lot,
house,
come out like this.
The house is in the public right-of-way. Spruce Street came after the house was already built.
That's what Bernie was asking, was do we know when Spruce Street was built? But you can say definitively it came
after.
after the house.
Yes,
So there was a take,
yes, in the original.
and they took part of the house.
Inadvertently.
Inadvertently,
Okay. Probably because it's not quite square. I'm not going to say whether the
All right,
house
you've
is square or
discussed
the
this
street is
with the
square.
building
I did,
inspector?
he didn't
And
have
he's
any
satisfied? Okay.
issues.
Okay,
with
I
it.
think that we should
Reverse our
authorize
decision?
Mr. Clark. We want the subdivision language, the usual subdivision language in this block.
Yes,
Subdivision approval is not required.
okay,
The usual stuff that's on an A&R plan. Okay?
right.
And then we'll authorize you to sign
And
it?
then we will to, yes, to
You
sign
don't-
Is
the
that your
plan.
motion?
Yes.
Do I have a
You don't- You don't want any notation then about the situation.
I think that we might note that a portion of the house is on the town right-of-way.
So in
A
addition to
portion
the
of the
A&R
house
language?
on, a portion of the existing house on Lot 1 is on the town of Milton right-of-way for Spruce Street.
Pass those.
And I think that,
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion? Any further discussion on the A&R?
What was, would this be considered, what was the name of this lot? We don't have two lots now. We're creating Lot 1 and Lot 2.
Okay.
So if you say that the dwelling on Lot 1
Yeah.
is
a portion of the existing house on Lot 1 is on the town's right-of-way.
so this particular date, that
As of the date of signature, yeah. Any other discussion? All right. So all those in favor of approving the A&R and authorizing Bill to sign on our behalf?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. You don't have to come back to us
Oh,
after all.
all right.
Just work with Bill.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for hanging around for
But
the,
you're going to get
You're
some
going to wind
stuff,
up getting this thing
you're going to
redone.
get some stuff on the,
Oh, I still need to get some stuff
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
and then Mr. Clark is going to
We're going to wind up
endorse it.
talking tomorrow.
okay, all right, so I'll just call you tomorrow
Yep.
and find out exactly what changes.
I'll write what you have to put on there and send it to you.
Awesome, awesome.
okay.
Excellent.
Do we have something to sign?
Yes.
All right.
Can you pass this to Leslie? I don't think they heard it.
And then I should contact, have him, have this engineer make up a new one of these with the changes.
I'm going to tell you what those changes are tomorrow.
Okay,
Just so
okay.
they don't get
So just call
confused,
you
I'm just
tomorrow.
going to keep them all
All right.
together.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alex, I see you have a blue pen. Does
The
everybody have a
changes
blue
are
pen?
in here.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to see what the changes are?
What? You gonna change copy?
You got 3.
Yeah, but I'm giving them back. You can email it
I
to me.
printed 7 copies. What happened?
Okay, you guys all have blue pens down there?
How many do you have to sign?
Once we
Three.
do it in blue, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what they
Just
do.
3 down there.
There's 3 down here. We're just keeping them together because we've got so many copies. I don't want to lose the ones getting signed. Okay, there you go, pass them down. All right, so as soon as we finish signing, we'll take up Randolph Avenue. In the meantime, Bill, can you fill us in on what you've been up to the past 2 weeks?
Yep.
Cover the dead air?
They're here.
What? I know, but I don't want to start while half the board is, not
Still writing?
focusing. Exactly.
I actually gave testimony to the Legislative Subcommittee on Energy, Telecommunications, and Utilities down at Barnstable at a public hearing for the town of Milton's wind turbine and the legislation that was proposed by Rep. Mariano, Taki Chan, and Bruce Ayers. I went to the public hearing with Mr. Hurley and Mr. Mern, and Representative Timothy got up first, gave his talk about why the legislation shouldn't be passed. He was followed by Selectman Hurley, then me, then Mr. Taccio, who represents, the lawyer representing Quarry Hills, got up and gave his. Been dealing with several sign issues. Home program is trying to develop more affordable housing units in Milton using federal funds. Takes up a fair amount of time.
Right, perfect timing. We're just finished signing.
Good.
You're all set?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so next item on our agenda is 597 Randolph Avenue. It's a proposed redevelopment zoning discussion. I hope everybody's here for this now. Thank you all for being patient. And I will call Anthony up to come chat with us. You can set up. Now, I'd like to remind everybody this is not, in fact, a public hearing at this stage, but we are absolutely accepting public comment, and I will make sure to call for people. Dr. Shea, do you want to join us now, or do you want to?
I will join you later.
Okay, fair enough.
Hi, how you
Hi,
doing?
Anthony. Just introduce yourself. And,
Developer.
yep.
Hi, how you doing? Jim DeSalle, Burke and Associates.
Great.
So from the last meeting, we took some of the input, and what we got from it was trying to design something with less buildings on the site. And we actually came up with a couple of plans that we're not too fond of, but we still put them on there to see what it would look like.
Jim, could you turn that a little just so the audience can see it? Doctor, can you see that? Your own one, Jim? Okay.
All buildings, all scenarios keeping with the same number of units, 12.
Okay.
We laid it out with 4 buildings, 2 buildings. So we did that one, which was 4. We did a 2-building layout. And we also did a one more, which was just a one unit, 1-building layout. The original one that we did put together, which wasn't blown up last time, is on the flip side, which is basically what we think is keeping more in line with the neighborhood of 2 families, 2 units per structure, made to look like one single family. I did bring a bunch of pictures of ideas that we thought would work for elevations. Again, they're all over the board, because some have garages, some don't. Some have a garage in the front, some have garage in the rear. Some are 3-unit buildings, some are 2-unit buildings. And the reason they're so spread out is because we still don't know where we're going with the buildings, if they're going to remain 2 families or 3s, or where they're going to put in the lots. So depending on the elevation, the garages may have to be in the front, or they may have to be in the back, depending on the elevation and where they go. So I don't know, I can kind of pass these around. I couldn't really blow them up, but there's just a whole boatload to look at.
Pick a building.
And pick a building, any building.
Okay.
And I tried to pick what I thought would fit best in the neighborhood. And that's it. Still looking for help to write something up for an overlay.
Now, I understand there was a site walk yesterday.
Dave, was yesterday, yes.
Yesterday,
Yep.
okay, and unfortunately, I had a prior conflict and couldn't attend. How many board members were you all able to make it? Yep. Alex, who wants to report? Anyone report on the sidewalk? Since I wasn't at the site walk, I can't
The building
report
is
on it, so-
magnificent, but it needs a lot of work. I don't know if
Fair
Tony
enough.
can afford to,
We saw,
big time.
John Cronin was there, and he pointed out where the old church used to be and where the church hall was, and described what the buildings were there. And we just basically walked around and looked at the existing conditions to get a better feel for the land and got a feel for the commercial enterprise operating on the residential lot next door. And other elements of the surroundings.
Eddie, do you have any impressions from the site walk?
That was my second site walk. I did an unauthorized personal site walk myself, but
Not an unauthorized one.
it's just a spectacular location, and the grading and so forth should lead to a spectacular product. I haven't seen that yet, though. So far, I haven't seen
Okay.
anything worthy of the site.
Okay. Alex, any impressions or comments from the site walk?
Yeah, it's an irregular parcel. There are a number of granite outcroppings, so that there is clearly ledge in the area. The house is not as shown in this
No.
picture as a two-story cottage, but is 3 stories. I went into the house. It has suffered significant water damage, but the floors didn't creak. And went down the basement and didn't, and I'm not an engineer, but I didn't observe huge structural problems down there. It was one of the main beams had been braced on something that I'm told are not Lally columns, but are a temporary steel
Fair enough.
structure holding up the beam. The granite building seems to be generally sound. The granite itself, although there is on the side facing Randolph Avenue some buckling and some cracking
Of the granite?
of the granite. A
joint.
slight bulge, but it didn't appear to me to be a huge problem. And I was impressed with the existing building. I thought that it seems like a pretty nifty place. So,
And any comments so far on either of the options for the plans or on the various pictures that were shown?
I have a comment. And my comment is that I think that the circular driveway is a huge mistake. There should be only one driveway into this site, and I think it should come off Reedsdale Road. I think that the road structure and the parking should be behind, towards the rear, behind the dwellings that are built. The problem with the circular driveway is not only the cut-through traffic, but I mean, when you have snow plowing, you're simply going to come in and they're going to go in either from Randolph Avenue and push the snow out onto Reedsdale, or they're going to come in Reedsdale and push it onto Randolph Avenue. And then there's going to be all the cut-through traffic. And I also think that, of course, one of the reasons that you can't save the existing granite house is because the circular roadway cuts right through it. Whereas if you eliminated the circular driveway and had a driveway coming in along the from Reedsdale Road along pretty close to the lot line, but not on it, then I think that you would have significantly more opportunity to do something creative, including preservation of the cottage.
Any other comments?
I tend to agree with Al. I've seen complexes in Cambridge where the street isn't back of, I'm trying to think of the area, I've done home inspections there, where the street is, it's not a street, it's a driveway, and it's in back of the buildings, and there are walkways in the front. I did not realize that there were two curb cuts. There's one on Randolph, there's one on
Right.
Reedsdale. And so it would actually just be a driveway. It would not be a street. And houses could be pushed back, and then the cottage could be saved.
Yes, sir.
Question. Are we discussing this on the premise of 12 units?
The proposal in front of us is to have 12 units. Now, the question will be, if we accept that proposal, how many buildings would those 12 units be in? So we've seen 6 buildings, 4 buildings, 2 buildings, and 1 building, correct?
Yep.
6, 4, 2, and 1, okay.
So
Yes.
you're saying it's 12 units, it will be 12 units?
No, I'm saying that the proposal is for 12
Oh,
units.
okay, proposal.
So we still haven't decided whether or not we agree with the proposal for 12 units, but that's the proposal.
Thank you.
So, I had the opportunity of looking at these plans over the weekend. Anthony sent them to me while I was out last week, and that's when I had a chance to look at them. I agree, and I think I had Bill send you, unfortunately not till tonight, the comments I sent to Anthony. I agree that the circular driveway is limiting, and we still haven't been able, because of that circular driveway, we still haven't been able to get away with having the parking, it's still in front of all the buildings, which I think the board decided at our last meeting is not acceptable. I agree that having a driveway along that lot line on Reedsdale would make a lot more sense for access to the site. And so I would certainly be looking to have that option rather than the circular driveway.
So
So-
you're looking to pave this area on, in here?
No.
The driveway and the parking in here?
Hang on, let me see where you are. Yes,
This is
yes,
Reedsdale Road.
yes, correct.
Would be, this curb cut would have to be moved up
Yep,
towards this lot line, and then you'd have it'd be about a 40-some-odd foot swath of asphalt.
well, whatever was
We could be
needed there.
Parking in the 24, or if we can reduce it to 20, the pavement of the driveway.
Yeah, actually, that brings up another question, which I was counting the number of spaces you were trying to fit onto your lot. And you had 47, 48 in some cases, spaces, perhaps not on that one. But, at 12 units, 2 bedrooms per unit, that's 24 spaces. So, there was one where I think you were way over, the other you were at 27 or 28, so.
What I'm trying to get is 3 parking spaces per unit, and the reason for that is guests. Most people,
Our standard has been 2 spaces per unit, which would allow you a car and a guest.
so
So,
each person, the 2 bedrooms share a car, and the guest.
well, you are on 2 bus lines, so, and one of your stated,
No, I know, but with
Reasons was-
most projects like this, you're on a street where you could park on a street. Being that it's on 2 state roads, there's really nowhere for a guest to park that would be safe. And then I'd hate to have people trying to park
People
in
park-
odd
yeah.
spots, trying to run across an intersection.
if you watch that road, people park along the street all the time. In fact, in some ways, it's a benefit, because it actually slows traffic down, coming around seeing the parking. So certainly, St. Elizabeth's across the street, they park down the street all the time, especially on higher holidays, where there are more cars in there. so.
Where this design came from, and part of the 3 cars per unit, was basically to make the least impact on the neighborhood. And that's why we decided not to put the parking in the rear, so the neighbors aren't hearing cars, seeing cars, smelling cars. They don't deserve to, they're in the back, they have nothing to do with the project. And the reason it's in the front and kind of tucked is so that we're preserving the corner, the green space that's already there, so when people are driving by. So that left us a really small area where to get all this done.
But
And
if
that's-
you look at the houses in the neighborhood, and this goes back to our principle of designing to fit, that you've already stated, of designing to fit within the neighborhood, I think you'll find that most driveways are along the side lot line. Just walk up and down that neighborhood, and you will see that most driveways are along the side lot
I
line.
agree with you,
And
but
you should look at that.
most of them don't run through people's backyards, though. That's the problem, because it is such a unique shape.
We're not necessarily saying that they have to run the backyard. We're saying that the curb cut, if I understand you correctly, Alex, should be next to that side lot line, and the driveway should start up there.
But the parking has to be in the rear, so how would I
Parking
get?
has to be, and we talked about buffers, if you remember at one point.
But no, but how would I not get the street in the back if the parking's in the rear?
I have a suggestion. This place I was referring to in Cambridge, each building had, and there were single-family buildings, they had a garage underneath.
Yeah.
They had dropped the land down. And when they have guests come, the owner of the house just pulls the car into the garage and lets the guests park in the driveway.
And that's a good point, Bernie, because that site is steep enough that you could potentially put garages under the house and reduce the amount of surface parking that you have to do. So,
So you'd have a two-car garage in the back.
Yeah, depending on
And that
where,
would satisfy,
absolutely, yeah.
and then guests.
You could still have 2 outdoor spots, and then with the garages have, you know, a third. I know what you're saying, but it depends on, again, the location of the structures as to if we can do a garage below, because the lot is graded kind of.
Well, it is a high lot.
Right, so if they go kind of in that direction, I could get garages underneath.
And then what would happen is the owners of the buildings, when they come home, they would utilize the garage and close it so they're not going to moon the neighbors with a bunch of cars.
Of course, yep.
now, you know, I've stated that our standard in the past has been 1 space per bedroom. What does the board think of 3 spaces per unit instead of 2? Do we have any thoughts on that?
I have thoughts, and the thoughts are that you've got a limited area. If you want to provide 3 spaces, plus green space, plus preserving the cottage, it's okay if you've got the space to do it. I think that it's, I mean, we've been trying to fit buildings onto a coherent plan, and 6 buildings seems tough to do. The existing cottage plus 4 others is possible. The existing cottage and 5 others is really tough. It seems to me that, and we were discussing also, you speak of buffers or the neighbors. One neighbor has a garage on the other side of the fence, and if you had, I mean, one possibility is having a series of garages along that particular line, which would not only, I mean, it would be a mutual screen, and it would probably be it was certainly something worthwhile looking into. It just seems to me that it's a question of what fits. And the more spaces you provide, the tighter the design is going to have to be. And there are a lot of elements here, because it seems that if we're going to change the zoning, we're doing it because we feel that the cottage should be preserved. It's a historic preservation sort of generated overlay. In other words, you get your overlay because you've done historic preservation. I don't see that there's any other reason really to create the overlay other than that. It's a tight site. It's a really tight site for 12 units, and I'm not sure that 12 units may not be too many.
Any thoughts on what Alex has just said?
I think my thought, starts more basically. This site is a very high-profile site in town. It's bordered on 2 sides by the state highway. It's very busy with traffic. It's got a commercial use across the street. In our most recent community development plan, it was identified as potentially a future commercial area for economic development. And if that's the case, and you mentioned this, last time we met, should we be looking at a redevelopment plan for that corner that maybe includes some mixed uses or whatever? So the first question is, being a high-profile, high-visibility site, why would the town want to rezone?
Right.
And then the question, so why would we want to rezone? One would be to further some community development objectives, like commercial or higher density or something else. Or other is to achieve some kind of public benefits. I mean, just to rezone, just to give higher density, it doesn't do anything for the town. So I think any proposal that changes the zoning has got to be coupled with some kind of identification and public discussion of what are the public benefits of a proposal. Now, Alex mentioned one is historic preservation, and I think that's a good one. There's talk about trying to save a portion of the property as open space, and maybe that's a benefit, and maybe, I don't know, maybe affordable housing. At one time, this was talked about workplace housing, which would be, some kind of less than market rate in order to make them more affordable, and maybe that's a public benefit. So I think any proposal for rezoning this for a new use or a higher density has to be coupled with, what's in it for the public? Why would we want to do this? And I haven't heard any discussion of that other than just to increase the density. And you increase the density to increase the sales price. That's why you increase density. So I think, first of all, we need to discuss not, does it have 2 buildings or 3 buildings or 5 buildings, but is it in the public interest to rezone this property at this time?
So let me kick that back to Anthony, because I think it's a very good point and something we were trying to get to at our last meeting. What's the public benefit that you're providing by doing this?
Just from listening to Mr. Jackson and also Mr. Whiteside talking about public interest would be the corner. I mean, that could be dedicated green space for the town to use for open space or whatever it sees fit, I guess.
Active open space, i.e. the public would be allowed onto it, or passive
Yeah,
open
I'd
space?
definitely be open to that. I mean, the goal was to kind of keep it open, keep it green, and threw a gazebo on there just to kind of further solidify that it was going to be open space or remain that way. As far as the driveway going through, I kind of do agree with that. I think we should close one entrance. But yeah, we're going in the right direction, kind of working through this scheme. I definitely agree with closing it. I don't know that it would be a cut-through, just because you're only 2 cars behind at the light. But, the plowing issue, I could see that happening. I've seen it happen actually a million times on different sites and things like that. So I could see that. Keeping the corner green would benefit the town as well. As far as that house goes and salvaging it, it's definitely not within my budget. It just needs a ton of work. I actually just figured out another issue with it today as far as a new building code, which my architect is looking into, with the seismic pressures of the granite walls and the foundation. If there's no steel in it, it doesn't meet the new code, and if we renovate more than 50% of the house, it has to meet the new code. So that's a whole new issue that came up beyond the existing issues that are evident when you just walk in. So as far as salvaging that house, it just doesn't really, it's just not financially feasible for us. It just really isn't. It's a great looking house. Well, it was a great looking house originally. It's been changed quite a bit since, but
I suspect you'd have to renovate more than 50% of the house.
little more than 50.
All right, the board's brought up a couple of issues, and I know there's at least one person wanting to speak. So with your permission, gentlemen, I'm going to open it up because I'd like to hear what people have to say. I'm sure you would too about the idea of public benefits. You first, Dr. Shea, because I saw your hand, and then we'll open it to everyone else.
I would just like to address the concept of saving the property. It's who would not want to save it, okay? But it costs money. A gentleman was there yesterday, Mr. Cronin, from Mar Company, and he said to shore up, and I hope I have this right, to shore up the granite would be a possible cost of between $50,000 to $75,000 just to shore it up. And he said that's not including taking the top 2 floors off or any other additional things that come on. But Father Walsh was interested in the situation, in the house. So the building inspector of the town was contacted as far as, did he have any recommendation of an unbiased person that father could hire and get an opinion on this? And he gave the name of a person, and father went to him and told him, we want an honest opinion as to what your opinion is with regard to saving or your opinion on the building. Well, the gentleman that he went to has a master's degree from Kent University in historical preservation. Of course, when I saw that, I figured, oh, he's going to say he's going to gotta keep it. But his report is it should come down. Now, he's got a master's in historical preservation. He's an unbiased, and we got it from the town inspector. And what more what more opinion can you have? I know there are people here, even in this room, that would like to keep it, et cetera, but you can't get a higher recommendation than that from somebody unbiased and with that kind of educational background.
Just a quick question, did he provide a written report?
Yes, he did.
And would we be able to get a copy of that?
Absolutely.
That'd be
I
great.
can have father get a report. Just tell me to whom would I get it to?
Send it to Bill, and Bill will distribute it to the board.
I'll have father do that in the
That'd be
morning.
great.
All right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I just thought you people should know that he paid, I don't know the amount, but this gentleman had a pretty good fee to do this. So that was an unbiased opinion on somebody well-educated
Right, that'd be very helpful, thank you.
on the subject.
Anybody else like to offer their opinion? Yes, please come up and introduce yourself for the board.
How you doing? My name's Ron Buckley. I actually own this lot right here. These lots.
Okay.
I'm the owner of that building there. I guess I have 3 comments. Number 1 is about notice. This was the first time seeing any of these things, right? I assumed that there would be some notice given to the abutters. That hasn't happened as far as I'm concerned, right? Number 2, on a theoretical level, I think this is a signature property in the town, and I'm not seeing anything here of the quality that I would expect to go there, right? I equate my property as a signature property in the town. I've spent a lot of time, effort, and money restoring it into a signature property, right? And and I'd really like to see it surrounded by the like, right?
Yeah.
Number 3 are more of realistic concerns from what I've seen today. Number 1, the density is way too high, right? The numbers I'm hearing right now are 6 buildings, 12 units, anywhere from 28 to 47 parking spots, right? I've got concerns about where we're talking about putting the driveway, because I've seen nothing but asphalt surrounding my property, right? That leads me to concerns about runoff, noise, anywhere around there. If with this number of people, there's going to be a huge amount of trash, and the only place I can see a dumpster going is right in the corner of my backyard, right? That's a main concern for me. That's essentially all I have to say. I really liked your conversation about public benefit. I haven't heard one other than a profit motive. I haven't heard any public benefit to the town about anything I've heard today, right? Maybe historic preservation, but I actually agree with Dr. Shea that that building is on its last legs, right? I guess that's all I have to say.
Eddie has a question, but before he does, I just want to address your first concern, which is this isn't a public hearing. If it were a public hearing, yes, you would have had to have been notified.
Okay.
Just to give you a background, because this is the first time you've seen it, and there may be other people who are seeing this for the first time. This was initially proposed as a citizen's petition for town meeting. We got word of it before it was going through, so I had been meeting to find out what was happening, was able to bring it to the board with the proponents, who you've seen tonight, Anthony Rosito and Dr. Shea has been representing St. Elizabeth's interest in this at our last meeting. So we are still considering whether or not, the citizens petition has been withdrawn. The board is at the moment considering whether or not we can support bringing an article before the special town meeting in January. And it is your comments and comments from other people who would be interested in this that are very much helpful in that. So thank you for coming forward. So we appreciate that. But that's why you haven't received a notice, is
No,
because
that's fine.
that's
Thank
where
you.
we are in this
I've
particular
seen
process.
articles in the paper
Yeah,
describing a lot of
exactly.
information, and
So, and we're hoping those articles from all of the different media outlets will bring more people in to give us their thoughts and opinions on it. So we appreciate that. Eddie, you had a question for this.
Yes, Mr. Buckley, do you reside at 347 Beachville Road?
I do.
Okay. And so it seems to me from that, you're the closest abutter to the property.
I believe I am.
Yeah. So would you, we've been told that the neighborhood is overwhelmingly in favor of residential use.
Absolutely. I would not like to see commercial use on that corner.
That was my question.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Great, thank you.
Just one question
Oh,
for John.
yes, absolutely.
That's the old McHugh property.
It is. I believe it's 1903.
Yeah, John McHugh was quite active in the town of Milton, had a great family. I see the map that Eddie has. You have a pool in the back?
Oh, no.
I think that
I
that's
actually-
a difference.
I actually bought that house out of foreclosure a year and a half
Oh,
ago.
the house in back of you?
No, no, no. The
Oh, I thought you-
347
That's an
was,
old pool. That's an old
was
pool.
in horrible condition when I bought it, right?
Oh, I just got the impression that from,
It was an above,
okay.
Yeah.
So you,
Pool's gone.
the first thing I did was remove
is
that
this a
pool.
garage?
That is a garage.
Oh, so you own all back here too?
I do.
Okay, so it's 2 lots.
It might actually be 3.
Okay, I get it, all right.
That's
Stand
helpful to
corrected.
know. Thank you. Alex, you have a,
Along the way, you say, I don't really see this development. And this is something we have been trying to get, which is a concept plan showing, the dumpster, the parking, the houses, how it would all work together to create a development that wouldn't impact you. And adversely, obviously it would impact you, but wouldn't impact you adversely. And I agree with you that we haven't seen that plan yet. I mean, all you have is here driveway and tan boxes, which presumably are buildings, but and then green. But you don't have the details, and the sighting is just wrong. So I can understand how you would be
concern,
concerned.
stated, yes.
Yeah, a lot of it might be surprise. I'm not naive enough to think that I'm going to have an empty lot next to me for the rest of my life. But I would like to see something along the line of 3 residential properties there, 3 single-family homes there, right?
Now,
Which is
under the,
zoned for.
it's actually
Which
under,
is the current zoning?
Yes.
no, the current zoning would allow up to what, 5?
5.
Did we count? 5 among the lots, yeah.
But
Because it's 7,500 square feet is residency, and that's what, 1.4 acres? For, if you add all the lots together?
80,000
So-
square feet?
Okay, so
something like
6,
that?
you would be able to get
Yeah.
6 under the current zoning if nothing else changed. So, but they wouldn't.
I'd be
right,
unhappy
they'd-
with that as well.
Fair enough. Any other questions for Mr. Buckley? Is it L-E-Y?
It is.
Great, thank you. Okay, if not, is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this? Yes, sir, come forward, please.
Keep that going.
And name and address for the camera, please. Okay, please.
The tag team.
You're welcome. Welcome.
Steve O'Donnell, Chairman of the Historical Commission. Brian Cheney, Member of the Historical Commission.
Can you spell your last name, sir, please?
Cheney, C-H-E-N-E-Y. We've heard a bit of discussion tonight about this signature location, this very prominent corner in town, and certainly it is. I think back to about a year ago when we were discussing another very prominent corner in town with a building that was in danger of being significantly changed. 95, I believe it is, Canton Avenue, the old DeWolf building. entrance to town, very prominent location. And through the work of this board and other town boards and committees, that project was amended in such a way so as to retain the character not only of the building but of the site. Interestingly enough, virtually right around the corner from this location on Highland Street is another early 19th century building, a totally wood frame, the interior of which was very deteriorated. It's been totally gutted out while retaining the exterior appearance of the building. The main building continues to look exactly the way it did in the early 19th century, but the building has been upgraded and repurposed. There is no reason why this granite building cannot be saved. As Dr. Shea knows well, second opinions in the medical profession are done all the time. They've had somebody come in to say, oh, it has to come down. Well, of course, that was the opinion of the proponents in the beginning. Yesterday, there was a couple of contractors. There was another preservation architect there yesterday. And indeed, I understand the cost to shore up the building while the top comes off and goes back on and all that is somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000, which is certainly not an insignificant amount of money. However, if you compare that cost to at least begin the preservation of the structure with the cost of demolishing the structure, removing and disposing of the debris, fixing the site up, digging the foundation out, filling the foundation hole in, and then starting from scratch to build another structure essentially the same size, I suspect the difference between the 50 to 75 in that second scenario isn't all that much. Mr. Rosito could probably give much better figures on demo and construction and everything else, but I suspect that the difference would be relatively small in order to preserve the house. This house has been there for over 180 years. There's no need to rush to take it down. The constraints that have been imposed on this property, constraints if they be, that is absolutely no consideration of a possible commercial use of any kind. And hurry up, we have to get this done quickly. Those are imposed by the owner of the property. They've chosen to do that. I wonder sometimes if the town is told to jump, the town really shouldn't say how high. What goes on this property is going to be there long after all of us are gone. What goes on that property is very important for the town. It is, I think, an even more significant corner location and, in a sense, an entrance to the town than Canton Avenue was with the DeWolf building. And I think everyone should think very carefully about what goes there. And I also believe, and the commission feels strongly, that any approvable plan for that site should include the preservation of the building. Losing this house would be a significant loss to the historic fabric of the town. Brian?
Thanks. A lot of what the Historical Commission talked about has come out in this, in that context. I would just like to add my voice. I teach at Milton Academy. I also do work in the town as a residential designer, and have worked on several of what you might think of as major historical buildings in the town to create additions to them that respect the existing structure and the existing site. While at the same time providing a new way for the people, the new owners of the homes, to be able to live in a way that's, much more timely, shall we say. So I have some understanding of the architecture and the architectural problems involved in this, though I cannot claim to be an expert in that field. I only use that as a reference. My being part of the Historical Commission, we see our charge to be able to help the town understand what we, with the various expertise that we have, understand to be the existing historical values within the town, and in some sense, the need to preserve that where we can, where it makes sense to do that, sense to the advantage of the town. Milton, I mean, all you got to do is look at the various sort of attention that Milton gets as one of the best 10 places to live in the US in these occasional surveys that come up, to realize that Milton has a lot of recognition. People come to the town because of that attraction. They look around. This is a gateway to the town, in a sense, this intersection, much like the intersection down on Canton. It very much matters what, in a sense, the town approves for, not so much the functional use of that, but also the visual use of that. And I think we have to be very careful about that. It struck me in looking at this plan, which is the original plan, that the impact when you drive into the town is of a parking lot on the corner. And it strikes me that that right away is some kind of signal about just what, in a sense, the motives are and the sense of respect for the benefit to the town that's in play at the moment. I understand what's in play in terms of a developer's idea of how to use available land to create possible new properties that will generate income. I've done some of that in my work as well. So I understand that, but I also very much appreciate the value of this particular piece. I think the value is there whether the existing structure, the stone structure, remains or not. I think there are two sort of issues that you can see here. One is there a way to preserve that stone structure, which is above ground and is very distinctive in terms of its architecture? It is one of the distinctive things, while it may have been built by someone who wasn't of any particular history within the town in terms of particular note, it still is a person who made a significant landmark, I mean not landmark, but a structure which people recognize as, this is very different. This speaks to the history of the town, its connection with the granite industry and that kind of thing. Is it one that someone spent a great deal of money doing? No, it isn't. But at some level, that's another thing that's of importance to it. In our historical commission meetings, there were conversations about that. And I shared in that meeting my sense that this town, this country, 1640, 1662, this town was founded by people who came in who were common people, who wanted a place to live, established homes here, and began to build their families. In a sense, this building is one of those and has some historical significance in that way. That's the historical significant sort of perspective. It also, I mean, I looked at it and, again, I'm not an engineer, but I looked at it and as you said, Alex, the floors don't creak, they don't bounce up and down. They've been shored up. There are problems with the granite. You have to look into the seismic issues. I don't know what that new code is, so there are some concerns that are there, but there are usually ways to retrofit a building, if there's enough need to do that, to address those new code issues if they do exist. Aside from the historical, I would just like to echo, and I've heard some of the same thinking here, so I'm encouraged from my perspective that even if that were to be torn down, I think we need to think carefully about what kind of structures and how many and how much visibility of the cars for the town as well as for the neighbors, right? You have as a presence on this very open piece of property at this stage of the game. Green space, image, access, convenience, all that kind of thing is very important.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members? Comments? I believe the Historic Commission has a demolition delay on this building?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's a 9-month delay
It is.
starting from, was it from
Beginning of
September?
October.
Beginning of October, okay.
Could you tell us a little bit just about the building?
Well, the building was built in 1830 by Joseph Howe. There isn't really a whole lot of information about the building, about the first 100 years of the building. It was surveyed during the 1930s by the Historic American Buildings Project, federal project. It was one of, I believe, 7 houses in town that were surveyed, and all of those records, architectural records, both of the exterior and the interior of the house, are in the collection in the Library of Congress. Now, we know the interior of the house has been significantly changed over the years, as interiors are changed, and certainly it's been significantly water damaged. But as Brian suggested, and as we saw on the Highland Street property, the interior of the house is going to be totally changed anyway were it to be preserved. So the condition of the interior really isn't all that significant. I heard the word steel mentioned a while ago. A contractor I know told me once that he loves to hear, if he's interested in buying a piece of property, he loves to hear somebody say, oh, it has to come down, because then he can buy it for a better price. And he said, what a piece of steel or a couple of pieces of steel will do to support a house is incredible. You put it in, you jack up what you have to, you stabilize it, and you go forward. And these contractors yesterday, I can't think of the name of the actual one that does the stabilization, but it's part of the Daniel Marr Company. I can advise you.
Louis was his first name.
Pardon?
Louis was his first name.
I can advise you with the name of the website, and you can see the properties that they have done, much stabilized and supported much more significant and much more complex projects than this one. It is definitely doable. The buckling on one end of the building, they said they would fix that first before they did the rest of it. They said that they felt that was not significant at all. Their opinion was the house was in good structural condition. Yes, it needed additional supports. Yes, it might need a new basement, a concrete pad poured in the basement, and that goes into the difference between the 50 and the 75,000. It depended on just what they got into.
Anything else? Thank you very much for coming
Thank you.
forward. Anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, yes.
Mr. Cheney, would you, in your free time, do some sketching, how you think it might work out?
In terms of a plan on that site?
Yeah.
Sure.
Or go away. This is a 40 scale. Might want to start working off of that. Make copies, okay?
You'll have it before you leave tonight?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, your homework is, you didn't
Pro
realize
bono,
you got
Sonia.
homework
Pro
when you came to
bono.
the board. So, anybody, any other members of the public wishing to speak? I see Mr. Irwin and then you, Dr. Shea. You want to speak? Please come forward and introduce yourself and your address.
I'm Gene Irwin, town meeting member, Precinct 9, 120 Highland Street, Milton. I'm here. I was asked to be a consultant to the parish council and to Father, and I was at the historical committee with the historical commission there, and I just want to say in defense of Dr. Shea, as far as getting a second opinion, the parish council spent a long time working within the neighborhood, contractors that were known to them, that sort of thing, bringing them in. And they've had dozens of engineers that agree with the written engineering that Father got. In fact, they had a Milton resident who was a funeral home director, and one thought was, even though that wasn't commercial, it would be pretty, 365, 7 days a week, 365, it would be gorgeous. All the other Milton funeral directors were contacted as well when they were considering this one from out of town, yet he lived here. The one who lived here thought the house, as it stood, wasn't quite large enough maybe to have a wing for showings and that sort of thing. He was heartbroken when he bought through several engineers who told him the same thing. The house cannot be saved. And this is a fellow who lives in Milton, in that neighborhood, and I say he wanted to save it desperately, as did many others. So to me, I don't think, I know the Mars, I know them all personally. I think their estimates are way off. My family has a bunch of historic properties, same age as that. And to me, this house was a little bit of a Frankenstein. It was originally not a two-story house, it was a story and a half. I reviewed all the pages from the Library of Congress. Those pages from the Library of Congress, Father sent them to the engineer. And the engineer quoted Father, quoted the church, and saying, I'm in the business of saving those houses. And it was bring it on. And and I say, Dr. Shea noted that that engineer was a master preservation and design expert. In addition, he's a concrete expert. And I said that the mortar that holds all those bricks together, there's no reinforcing, there's nothing. To deal with that house, it's like dealing with a pile of sand. It's not stable at all. And therefore, by the time you do the basement floor, as Alex was talking about the lally columns, there aren't any lally columns in the basement. They're all post jacks. They're meant to be temporary. And usually, I also sell real estate. Usually when you go into these older houses, sometimes you'll see a weak spot in the floor where they say there's a refrigerator, and someone will stick a post jack to shore up the floor. This house has about 12 post jacks. It was sort of a Frankenstein when they put the second and third story on it without anything underneath. And so when you start taking out those post jacks, and I say the beams have already been reinforced, there's a lot of termite damage and water damage. I just don't think further consideration of saving the house isn't in the cards. So I just want to clear that up, and I say, Dr. Shea did have dozens of opinions that confirm the same thing that Father had received written. And I say he did come to the town hall. The building inspector was of the same opinion, and we asked for someone neutral. So that's all I wanted to say to that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Shea, did you still have a comment?
First, I'd like to explain that Dr. Shea is the messenger.
We try not to blame
Dr. Shea has no opinion as to whether it should stay or should go. I'm just relating to you what we've learned. That's what I was doing. And as far as Mr. Duffy said, the neighbors are all in favor. This gentleman and his wife must work 24 hours a day, because I've been to his house 6 times. I've delivered the mail to his house a few times, because it's left on the stairs. And he was one I just could not get a hold of. And I will spend some time this evening explaining to him the possibilities and letting him understand, and I think that he will feel differently after I speak with him. And I was pleased to learn, seeing that I'm still working hard, that $75,000 is a very insignificant amount of money. That was just to shore it up. It had nothing to do with replacing the basement. That was going to be extra. Taking the top 2 floors off was extra. So it's a significant amount of money. It's not coming from me, but it is coming from the contractor. He's going to have to come up with that kind of money, and I'm not so sure that anybody should ask somebody like that to come up with that kind of money. And the significant, I think there's a large significance to the town, Mr. Jackson, and that is that 6 single-family homes aren't going to be put there, which, without the zoning, I think Mr. Whiteside has said that zoning doesn't have to be changed to put 6 single homes there with 4 bedrooms in each home. I mean, I think that is a gift to the town that's not going to be done there. And another gift is the grass, the green in the front. We're trying to keep that open. And I know that that design wasn't liked, and that's the first time I've seen that, but I thought it gave the corner more open space look. I know Mr. Whiteside said he didn't quite like that, but as just an observer, it does give that corner a lot more open space to make it, as Mr. Whiteside was telling me, look nice. And
a quote from Dr. Shea.
So I wanted to explain to Mr. Duffy about the neighbors, and if in fact you want a crowd here at the next meeting to show their support for this type of development, not necessarily a particular formation, etc., but we can provide that. But believe me, there is support. And remember, I'm the messenger.
We'll remember
Don't
that.
shoot.
Yep. All right, any other members of the public? If not, I'd like to talk about process a little bit, because that's going to go into what we discuss next. I think we'll hold off on debating numbers, not having anything with numbers in front of us as far as costs and things. But two things. First of all, if the land were sold for single-family houses, they could put 6 houses on the site. If they did 6 curb cuts, and depending on how the lot, are there 3 lots, 4 lots, Bill?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so to do 6 houses, they'd have to come to us for subdivision control.
There's
Or
4
at least
lots,
an
one of them
A&R.
is landlocked.
Yeah,
If
depending
you're
on how
an
they did
A&R.
it. They do it in A&R. But with an A&R, we would not have any control. If they built 1 house per lot, we would have no control over the fate of the existing house. If they came to us for an A&R, we would not have control over the fate of the existing house. If they did a subdivision, we may or may not, depending on how that subdivision was done. So just a reminder that under the current zoning, there is little control other than the demolition delay that this town has over the fate of the house. Now, I'm going to pass out a schedule, an updated schedule. The schedule, and there should be some extra copies. The schedule I passed out last time, if you remember, was designed to get us to having not just the article in the warrant for the special town meeting, but a recommendation from the warrant committee in the article for the special town meeting. Now that schedule, people from the audience may want them, so, or at least certainly Anthony and perhaps Dr. Shea should have copies. That schedule depended on us having a solid concept plan at this meeting for which zoning could be written. We do not have that plan. I think I can safely say that with agreement from all of you, that we do not have a solid concept plan that would allow us to write the zoning in order to meet the schedule that I gave out at the previous meeting. So this schedule, revised schedule, would allow us to get an article on the warrant. There's a slim chance that we might have a recommendation from the warrant committee for that article, but it is not guaranteed. The other one would have guaranteed it. I will remind everybody that going to town meeting without a recommendation from the warrant committee in the warrant on a zoning article presents difficulties at town meeting as far as getting the zoning approved by town meeting. I mean, zoning changes are a high bar anyway. Zoning changes without a recommendation from the warrant committee in the article are an extremely high bar. So I'm going to let you know that, and I'm going to run through that we would meet with the proponents at this meeting, obviously, as we're doing now. We would potentially have a meeting next week to discuss zoning article language if we had had a solid concept presented here. Having not had that, we would have to meet next week to discuss a solid concept, and we'll talk about what that would involve in a minute. And then on November 10th and potentially November 15th, we would be able to actually discuss zoning language if the board wished to go forward with this. The language would have to be voted on by November 15th at the latest, or possibly 16th if you wanted to do a Wednesday meeting, because the warrant opens and closes on November 17th. We do not have any control over that. That is the Board of Selectmen. If we are going to go to town meeting with an article, we would have to have that article in substantially final form on November 17th. Now, that would allow the advertisement for the public hearing to go into the newspaper on November 21st. We'd have a meeting off on November 22nd and just discuss regular business. The public hearing advertisement would appear on the 25th, which is Thanksgiving, and hopefully everybody's home reading their papers, and on the 2nd. And that would allow us to have the first night of our public hearing on December 8th, which incidentally is the day after the warrant committee is doing their final votes on the articles. However, we still have a chance because the warrant's going to be in writing and proofing stage at that point. And if we could finish our discussion and vote on December 15th, we would have a chance of having a recommendation in the warrant, potentially, but we would certainly have the article in the warrant for the Board of Selectmen to sign on December 22nd. Again, that is a fixed deadline. The warrant goes to the printers on December 23rd. That is the last possible day. So, and the Board of Selectmen is signing the warrant on the 22nd, which means there are no changes to the warrant at that point. So, I am giving you the revised timeline. Take a question for Pete, and I'm going to explain why this is important. Pete.
I think at our last meeting, we indicated to the proponents that it was not possible to get something done for the special town meeting, and we've asked if you could go back to the father and find out whether a more realistic schedule maybe for the annual town meeting.
May I want me to answer that?
Sure.
Yes, please. Come forward so we can get you on camera.
Father has contacted the Archdiocese, and their response was they will not give a written extension.
Whatever that means.
Extension on the time. We wanted a written extension, and they said that they will not give a written extension.
I will also remind the board and those listening that if this goes to special town meeting, if the board decides to support an article to special town meeting has three options. They can vote in favor, obviously. They can vote against, and they can vote to send it back to the planning board. Our goal in going through this process was to give town meeting something tight enough that they would vote either yes or no and not send it back to us. If they vote no, the article would not be able, a substantially similar article would not be able to come before town meeting for another 2 years. They would have to wait for 2 years to do that. Now, this is important, A, because I've already said that there is a very high bar that we are setting by trying to take this to the special town meeting. I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it. That's something the board will have to consider. I am just informing everybody that this is a very high bar on a very tight timeline. The second thing is that in order to do this, in order to have any hope of meeting these deadlines, is that at our next meeting, we have to have a fully formed conceptual plan upon which zoning can be written. And yes, come on up, because we're going to start talking about what that fully formed plan would be. Pete, you have a question.
Well, just on your schedule here, you say on November 10th is our next meeting. We need to have the language of the article.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a plan, it's the zoning language.
Well, the question is going to be, and it'll be a question for the board in a minute or two, is do we want to meet on November 3rd to review a plan? That's going to give you a week's turnaround. Less than that, because you'll want to get it to us on Wednesday for us to view.
We discussed the fact that although the Archdiocese will not give a written extension,
yes,
that the language seems quite possibly to allow some.
I think we should address that. I think the other thing we should address is whether or not the board feels that they should be bound by somebody else's timeline. That's why I'm giving you all this information. We have a very strong timeline. We have multiple meetings that would have to take place outside our normal meeting schedule. Should the board be bound by the proponent's timeline, which seems to have been possibly imposed artificially with no consideration of the town's process, and go for the annual town meeting no matter what, or should we try for the special? Yes, Bernie.
I thought I saw a letter from the father saying that he was withdrawing the...
He did.
Citizens petition.
Yes, the citizens petition has been withdrawn. The question is whether or not we take it up as the board. The citizens petition has been withdrawn, although I'd like to point out with the Board of Selectmen closing the warrant on the 17th, if we chose not to take it up, they would have the option of resubmitting a citizens petition. So, yes, Eddie.
A piece of housekeeping.
Yes.
November 22, we've changed to November 21.
Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, 22 should read 21, Monday, 21.
And obviously, we already met on October 13th, in case you were wondering. So.
All right.
So, Anthony, so let's start briefly with your perspective on how quickly you can turn around a full concept plan to us.
So I'll talk to Father Walsh in the Archdiocese as far as getting an extension. But just to back up a minute, so from my understanding of this article for an overlay, if I were to come and do something and try and get it done by myself, some kind of language, I would need 100 signatures. Now, since we're going through regular town meeting, I would need 10 signatures to get my own.
If you were doing a citizen's petition, you would need 100 for the special town meeting in January. You would need 10 for the annual town meeting in May. If the planning board decides to support an article, you don't need any signatures. It would be coming from us rather than you.
Right, no, I was just setting up my
Yes.
comment. So basically, I came here for help. I didn't, so I keep getting, another concept. I can keep drawing concepts all day long, but I came here for help. So what does the board want on the site? Just tell me, and that's what we'll draw, and that's what we'll work with. But I can't just keep throwing different sized buildings, different numbers of buildings, hoping somebody bites and says, oh, that works. So let's get together and try and come up with something that the board wants there. And then if it is something different, then I'll sit down with Father and the Archdiocese and we'll discuss it and see if that's what we can get on the site. I'm looking for help. That's what I
Okay.
came here for.
Gentleman's asking for help, guys.
I
have
think
you
that
got
we
for 'em?
have a difference of opinion as to what your role is. You want to buy a piece of property and you want to do a development, and Dr. Shea said it's going to be nice. And what we've said is, okay, this is what you want to do. Just don't worry about the zoning. Put together a plan showing what you want to do. That's nice. And have some elevations. It's sort of like when you have a design competition for anything. The winning design is the design which seems to meet all the criteria that a development needs to meet, like where the dumpster is, all these things. But you as the developer wanting to do something really have to come to us and say, this is what I want to do. Doesn't it look great? Because you've given us the site plan, you've given us some elevations, you've hired a professional to do the work. And then once you get us on board, or not on board, depending, but what you're trying to do with this is show us something that we're going to like. And we're going to say, we want in on this concept. But to ask us to tell you what you should want, I think is getting it all mixed up.
Well, that's not really how this all started. How this started was I was looking for input from the town to help me come up with something that works. I did propose something. The first input I got was, where are the trash barrels? It's the first input I heard, is where the trash barrels.
That's not actually true, Anthony.
But I have no direction. I've been drawing plan after plan, and as far as giving you an elevation, I'd be lying to you if I gave you an elevation. I can't give you an elevation unless I know where it's going, so I can know how to design a house that works with the site.
Right, and what we've asked you to do is to tell us what you want this to look like.
Right.
Now-
You're talking about an elevation?
No, what we're talking about is the entire site design.
Laid out.
Not laid out, no.
Layout like that.
No, that's not the layout. And I have given you a number of comments by email on the plans that you've sent. I haven't noticed any changes made to the plans as a result of the comments, but that's fine. The point is, you've heard that we don't want 2 curb cuts. You've heard that at 2 meetings now.
The curb cuts.
The 2 current curb cuts, you're only getting 1, okay? So you've heard that we don't like the half-circle driveway. You've heard that we don't like the parking in the front. You've heard that at least some of the members of the board would like to preserve the house. You've heard that at least some of the members of the board would like to preserve open green space, preferably for active public use. So you're going to have to think about how that works.
Yes.
You know that the neighbors don't want light shining in their driveway, so you need to think about how the buffers are going to work and how that relates to the parking. You know that the board's general standard is 1 parking space per bedroom, but that if it were correctly and logically designed, we might consider more. So you've heard all of these elements.
I have.
It's not our job to tell you how to
It's
put them on the
not, but
site.
I've heard everything that the board does not want, not what the board does want, and that's what I came here for. I've heard that it's such a visible site, so that's why I came to the town, for the people who are in charge of planning it, and said, let's talk about what the town does want to see on the site.
All right, so
But not what the board does not want to see, what the board does want to see.
the board would like to see, a number of the members of the board would like to see the house preserved. A number of the members of the board would like to see active green space. A number of the members of the board would like to see, actually all of the members of the board in this case, would like to see a very high-quality design. A number of the members, all of the members of the board would like to see something that fits within the current residential neighborhood. Now, we had mentioned commercial at the last meeting. We had mentioned mixed use at the last meeting. I remember in the meeting that I had with you and Mr. Irwin and Dr. Shea and your brother, Anthony, that we discussed whether or not we wanted to do zoning that incorporated both sides of Randolph Avenue. And one of the issues was, in that particular case, to keep the residential side, the property that you're talking about, residential, and to incorporate commercial on the current commercial side. And if I understand correctly, that lot that used to be the gas station has to remain commercial by the DEP order, is that correct? Because it used to, it's
There's an
oil spill?
There's two lots across the street. That particular lot is zoned residential.
Right.
Residence C.
But
There
the
is an
use-
AUL, an administrative use limitation on the property because of a past oil spill.
That would require it not to
You
be
cannot put a
residential.
house, you
Right.
cannot put something that deals with children, a child care center.
So in that particular case, if the board wished that to stand, you would still be limited to residential on your current site. So I think you have heard some positive comments from the board. I would invite other members of the board to offer any other positive
So
comments.
just
of
to
what they'd like
recap on those
see.
real quick, so
Yeah.
I got to write, some of it preserved for green space, the house preserved, some kind of a design that works, which I can't get to until I know what I'm doing, and something that fits with the neighborhood.
All right.
That's what I got so far.
You're getting more. Bernie?
And you really get warm with me if you can do this. The lot as it's configured now, I think it's 80,000 square feet, Jim, something like that?
62.
Well, 62. And C zoning is 7,500 square feet. So 7,500 into 62,000, I don't know if that's 5 or 6.
It's 6 plus, just like 6
Six.
plus, yeah.
You might not need land for a street because it would be a driveway. So you might be able to, by the existing zoning, fit the number of houses that the existing zoning would let you build. The cluster zoning bylaw, I think it's a minimum of 4 acres, so that's out, but
5 or 10? 5 or 10?
no, it goes down to 5. Alex and myself voted.
Sorry?
10 and 5,
Yeah.
10 and 5.
So if you could utilize the 7,500 square foot situation with the square footage so that you don't have to go for rezoning.
And to do single families? So to come up with some kind of a design with the, okay.
So you might build, what, 6 structures or,
But instead of having individual curb cuts, maybe have a common driveway.
well, yeah, that's why you wouldn't build a street.
And then to zone I mean, if you were going to do 6 houses,
Well, why couldn't he do A&R on all of them?
well, I mean, but if he could do 6 and the cluster, it would be easy to change the zoning for clustering if the cluster, if the cluster thing worked. But it would limit him to 6 houses, and he wants 12.
He wants 12
Then he's got
units
to
in 6
build
buildings.
The house that would be worth that for prospective buyer. Prospective buyer might want to pay more because of the way that Anthony is going to design
But
the thing.
remember, his original point, and the original point of St. Elizabeth, as I understand it, was to do duplexes to make them less expensive, not more expensive. The whole point was not to do single-family houses. Just reminding everybody, the whole point was
Well-
not to do
Well, is that the
single-family houses.
reason, or
That-
is it to?
That was the
It was
reason given
presented as
in.
worker housing, but there were no income
Yes.
constraints
That's
on the
right.
housing that really made it worker housing.
Right.
It's market rate housing.
Yeah,
That's what's being proposed.
The actual citizens petition was multifamily housing with specific income ranges, but no provision, yes it was, I've got it right here. One citizens petition, right in front of me.
Says that objective, but when you get into the performance.
That's the
Right.
objective.
It's an
That's what I was
Require it.
saying
There's no
is,
performance
yes,
criteria that require that.
exactly.
It's
That's what I
it's a
said, it had income
market rate,
restrictions,
right.
but nothing to enforce them.
It's a market rate
Right,
development.
exactly.
So do you
Which is
think that
part of
was
the
a
problems with the
carrot? You
zoning.
think that was a carrot thrown in there to get it?
I think it was
Get it accepted?
somebody, frankly, I think it was somebody who didn't understand how to write zoning.
Okay.
But it was a nice
Be
idea.
diplomatic.
It was a
The
nice
Type of
idea.
housing that,
Yeah.
the town could use.
All right, so more, what does the board want to see Mr. Rosito include in his proposal? Specifics. I mean, we've talked about a site plan, a full site plan. We've talked about elevations of the type of buildings that you would build, not 40 pictures, but elevations of what specifically you would
Yeah,
build.
I can get pictures, but they're not exact. Again, they'll change depending.
No, we need to know what you're, because when you take this to town meeting, assuming the board actually supports this, when you take it to town meeting is going to see what you, Anthony Rosito, are going to build on this site. And so we don't have to have full colored elevations, but we at least have to have very specific concept sketches on this. We want to know, we want to be able to take it to the neighbors and say, this is what he's proposing. So we need to know that.
That's right. You want to be able to show these things to your neighbor who's going to look at them and understand what you are planning to do and what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And
And that they're
coming in
delighted
with
to
a
have
bunch of duplexes that have been built all around isn't enough. You really need to show what it's going to look like. And you see these things all the time on the fronts of brochures where they have trees and clubhouses
Yep.
and all this thing.
Although no clubhouses on this site. It's
No
just-
clubhouses. And you ask what I want to see. I'd like to see you preserve the house and build 2 others. That's not what you want to do. That's what I would like to see on the site.
Well, that's important, because we're here together to come up with something.
Well,
So
all
that's-
right.
it is important what you
I
wanna see.
think that it would be dynamite to have basically 3 houses on that lot. And you want to put 12 on it, and it seems to me that since we sort of disagree by 9 units.
You could put
it's
4
up-
units per
It's
building.
up to you to come up and say, look, what I can do.
Yes.
Because I've got creative, talented people working for me who do these things.
And I think that's the key issue, is that you come forward and you said, I would like to do 12 units in 6 buildings. And the members of the board have come back to you and they said, we think that's too many buildings for this site. We think that's too dense. So you have 2 choices. You can either go with exactly what we tell you to do, which, since there are 5 of us, will probably differ in at least 6 different ways. Or you can come back and say, this is my best idea. This is what I want to build for the town.
Yep.
How do I do this?
So I think
How do
I
I
see-
sell us on it?
I think I see the problem. Because
Yeah.
some of the things you're telling me, like parking in the rear, I can't achieve with the same number of units. I
Right.
can't achieve it, because the closer I pull them to the street, A, the more green space I eat up, and B, the radius gets shorter, so I can't fit those buildings.
But remember, we have just told you that radius is out.
Right,
No, not a single member of this board likes that half-circle radius.
So,
So get rid of the radius.
so, but still maintaining the Reedsdale Road
No,
entrance.
it doesn't have to be that particular entrance.
Right.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Make that a blank slate. Just have the parcels in there, have your outline, make it a blank slate, and come up with something.
With less units, is that what I'm hearing?
Come up with your best proposal for what you want to do. Yes, members of the board would like to see fewer units, and I see Pete raising his hand, so he's going to get the next one. We want to see, you have said that 12 units is what meets your needs as a developer. We have said, in general, that we think that's too many. So you either persuade us or you drop it down, but that's your choice. Pete?
And I still come back to the issue of why the town would want
Right.
to rezone. And
Yes.
I'd like to see what the benefits are that the public is achieving from this development. One of it is maybe not having 6 curb cuts out on the streets there, although Bernie's pointed out a way that could not happen and still get the 6 units. But to me, I think that if we're going to increase the zoning density, therefore increase the value of the property, there needs to be some direct public benefits. So for example, we're at 6 units because that's what zoning allows. So in my mind, if you agree to, say, preserve the house, I might be willing to give you an extra unit for that. So there's, a public benefit and some greater density. If you, agree to preserve a certain amount of open space, and that open space is open to the public and it's maintained by the homeowners association, so it's not a burden on the town, maybe, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll give you another unit in terms of bonus. Affordable housing, there's no required affordable housing component, but maybe if you agree to provide an affordable unit, maybe the board would then say, okay, that builds you another unit. So by directly telling us how we are going to benefit from this, that it's not a one-way street, that the development gets all the benefit in terms of increased density, here's how the public benefits. In exchange for certain benefits, you build your density, and maybe you can come up with enough public benefits to get up to 8 units, maybe you can get up to 10 units, but I think that's going to have to be kind of a discussion and negotiation into how, but just the idea of changing a 6-unit density to a 12-unit density, I need more than that to say that the town should take on itself to do that.
Bernie, do you have any?
No, I'd still stick to my idea of let them try to do it with the existing zoning and make the house create the walls or create the value of what he puts in the house and the surrounding area.
Eddie?
I go back to Mr. O'Donnell's remarks about this being, and also Mr. Cheney's remarks about this site. The site is spectacular, and it seems to me that single-family houses being squeezed down tight, and also trying to get all these amenities, public amenities, makes it almost an impossible equation. If we would have one, for example, one building with 6 units, then obviously there's going to be much more land opened up.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Which would be a benefit. And you could preserve the house also with that concept. So the single-family house concept, to me, is problematic because I just think it's going to chew up too much of the land. And it will not be a spectacular site from any which way. It'll be like any other side street in Milton, rather than the spectacular raised elevation, that beautiful knoll with different views from 180 degrees. So I would say, as I said, I think the last meeting, we need some person, some expert, to look at this and say, this is how you can do it and achieve, this spectacular corner for posterity. But I don't see single-family houses accomplishing that. Thank you.
Anthony, do you have any questions for us?
Nope. 5 different stories, I'll try and put them together.
All right, one thing that you might consider, I know that when we emailed back and forth that you were talking about the fact that your engineer was working first and then you were going to bring your architect and your landscape. I think you should have all 3 of them together. I think this is a point where they need to start working together to come up from their respective fields with something that works, because your landscape architect is going to have experience laying out sites, your engineer has that, your architect's going to have some ideas about how these houses can look. We're encouraging you, this is unusual for the board, we are encouraging you to be actually quite creative. We've set, I know it's difficult because we've set relatively few bounds, but we are in fact encouraging you to be quite creative and to not be limited to what's on the site except for preserving the house. But what I mean by that is you have unnecessarily restricted yourself by this, you've put in this driveway, or essentially driveway that connects the 2 curb cuts. You have completely and unnecessarily restricted yourself on the layout of the site. We're saying take out that unnecessary restriction and show us what you can do. Now your next question, when can you do this by?
When do you do this by?
Not play anything on that one.
We'll put it together as quickly as possible.
Okay, so you have a choice of, do we meet next week? I don't think you can't do this in a week? All right, so then we have to have this for our November 10th meeting. In order to have any, hang on, Eddie, in order to have any possible chance of the board being able to support this for the special town meeting. Now, I think we ought to consider, as board members, I mean, we do have the time to get this in. It will probably almost 99% not have a recommendation from the warrant committee in it. But we will have had our public hearing, and the language would be sat. We could just squeak this by. But if Anthony comes up with a proposal that we truly support, we may not be giving it the best option at the special town meeting by waiting that long. So I think we need to discuss that. Yes, Eddie, who've been very patient.
Anthony himself said that he would speak to Father Walsh in the Archdiocese for an extension. And I think we should encourage him that as much as we can. Because trying to squeeze us into this time frame, Anthony, won't be the best project.
Of course.
So if, and Dr. Shea's persuasive powers also, the two of you could, we know that it won't be a written extension, but I think that we have to go along the basis that we can't get what we want in this time frame.
Yeah. Church's word's good enough for me, so I don't need anything written.
All right, so let us know, because I won't say that you're dooming yourself for failure on a time frame, but you're not giving, you and the church are not getting your best chance for success on a time frame this tight. So I just want to say that strongly.
Absolutely. My first order of business.
Very
All
good,
right.
Anthony.
And let us know. Okay,
Good
so
start.
Alex, do you have something?
It does seem to me that if you can come in with a concept plan on the 10th, it may not be perfect, but it certainly is going to help move things along. And we would like to move this along, but we're not going to put something through that is not in the best interest of the town.
Yeah. Okay?
Fair enough.
You have my email.
I do.
All right.
I'll start
Anything
right
else?
away.
Just one question for Jim Burke.
Yes. And then you
Jim,
had,
those aren't the existing curb cuts on, that's the way it is out there now?
Yeah, I think
it's not
that's right.
connected like that, but those are the existing.
No.
cuts.
There's a curb cut here, and the curb cut is there. It's
Yeah.
not shaped like that.
Yeah.
That goes through.
No, I realize that, but I thought it was much closer to
There's a house in the middle of the driveway.
John Buckley's house.
No,
No.
it's way down
It's
there.
not- Yeah, it's actually quite far down.
It certainly would be
Okay.
better for circulation on this site to have it further from the corner.
Well, you're gonna
Yeah.
have to if you go to
Because
the
of
concept that I
traffic,
was
yeah.
interested in, because it's a state highway and it's difficult to,
There's a lot of
Eh.
issues with it. That's
Yeah.
why the question was trying to get some direction on where we're going, because by the 10th, there's no way we can get a full set of site plans that are.
We're looking for concept at this point, a strong concept, but we're not looking for we're not looking for
All drainage
full
and all of that.
construction or drainage or anything like that. We are looking for a strong concept. That's what I was saying about the elevations. You don't have to have full rendered elevations like the ones we just got from 131 Elliott. You know, that was the full thing, but strong sketches. Your architect will know what that is.
No, I absolutely know what it is, but he can't even get started until Jimmy gets
Well, that's what
done.
I'm saying, is you guys need to work together.
Yeah.
The three of you need to get into a room, and four of you, counting you, Anthony, you need to get all your team together and start talking about this.
there's another
Yes,
team
yes.
member, I'm sorry, maybe Ed.
Ed was kind of before, both you and me,
Good, good.
actually.
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep coming back to Fletcher Steel Way. I thought what we did in Fletcher Steel Way was great. The Cochran people did not develop every lot. They left that garden there. Then we got them and the garden club together. The garden club maintains that lot, the Fletcher Steel Way garden lot. And I'm thinking with the Historic Commission, maybe it's about time that they start really getting involved with trying to protect some of these buildings in the town. And if they would be willing to enter into some sort of agreement with Anthony, I know they don't have money, but the garden club doesn't have money either, that they would take over the responsibility of kind of managing this house. just a concept.
Given that you've got a demolition delay, it's probably a good idea to at least start talking to the historical commission.
They might want to save it.
That was my recommendation along with Mr. Cheney. Keep in touch with Mr. Cheney and Mr. O'Donnell.
Yeah.
I think it'll help you, not hurt you.
Anything else? All right, so we will see you on November 10th. It's not a public hearing, so there's no stated time. 131 Elliott will be before you.
But we might set a time because I expect we may have
People coming to talk to
some
us?
people.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Should we have it
131
in this
Elliott's
room?
at
We
6:40?
probably should be at the Council of Aging, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we should.
Are the troops coming out, Dr.
Can we
Shea?
get Council on Aging?
On the 10th?
For the 10th?
Will there be a big crowd here on the
Either
10th?
there or
Because
downstairs.
we'd have to move
All
it.
right.
We'd have to
We'll
move the
see what we
meeting.
can do. And we have 131 Elliott coming in at 6:40?
Yes.
All right, so why don't we make
I think it's
this...
7 now, aren't they?
All right, are they at 7 now? We put our, oh no, we didn't put our A&R because we fixed it. I thought we'd done them.
They don't
for
need a
6:40.
time for an A&R.
I know, but we fixed it anyway, so.
But this may be an hour.
7 o'clock,
7 o'clock.
31's on at 7.
This will be a fairly long discussion. Why don't we put it in at 7:30? Okay? So 7:30 on the 10th. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Writing.
All right, next item on our agenda, potential zoning articles for the annual town meeting, May 2012. So,
Mr.
Yes.
Sheffield is developing a article for assisted living.
oh good, he's fully developing the article then.
He's
Very
developing a
nice.
proposed article for
Okay.
assisted living and has indicated that he has a site, which is the Playland Stables.
Horseplay,
Horseplay.
horseplay stable.
Horseplay Stable.
Okay,
Uh,
and is he checking to see if there are other suitable?
And I've told him that if he gets if he does some zoning, I'd be happy to give it a thorough review once he
Excellent.
produces it.
Very, very good.
And the building inspector has a couple of things.
Yes, so I was just pulling up. Eddie, yeah?
Can you define assisted living, Bill or Alex, in simple terms?
Well, it's apartments with services of a certain sort.
Meals.
I mean, there is meals, yeah.
Nursing and doctor care.
Yeah.
I actually have a whole folder that I've been putting together because for as much as Mr. Sheffield has one, there's another site that's in play that they would like to think about it too.
Okay, so we should consider
The
that.
issue here, it becomes a little more difficult with our present zoning because our D-zoning says that it has to be a nonprofit. Both of these companies are for-profit companies.
Okay,
They do assisted living. It has a hospice unit that goes with it. It has an Alzheimer's unit that goes with it. One is, I think they're both 90 to 110 beds is the size of the unit that they're looking at. But they're not going on small lots. They're going on fairly large lots and not building out the lot. They're I cannot remember Horseplay's numbers.
3 acres, I think.
I think it's more than that, but
3.5?
they've got 3 lots up there, so piece the 3 lots together. If it's 3 acres, what they're building on is an acre. There is open space associated with them. They're looking to make connections to the surrounding area. It may be that we come up with a D4. I mean, we've got D, D1, D2. It may be that we come up with a D3 or a D4 that allows for a for-profit company.
okay.
There are a couple of lawyers in town that are representing them, so we'll work on it and come up with something that combined that we can bring back.
Yeah. Any questions on that?
The issue, of course, is that on all the others, there was a site, and we zoned the site. And here,
It would
the
be
question
allowed.
is, we either zone the site or decide what sort of a site could be used, because, I mean, that's 3 acres is 2 lots in the AA zone, so that is pretty wide open, so we've got to determine where these things
Right.
could go.
And I'm
then
assuming-
zone to make sure that that's where they do go.
And I'm assuming at a minimum, we're requiring the special permit, whether it's an overlay
It
or
would
by
be a
right, but it
special
would be a
permit,
special
yeah.
permit, okay.
Be a special permit that actually has there'll be a definition in the zoning that goes to all of your issues. There'll be a zoning map change that has to be for each one of those projects.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a simple, it's not as simple as Mr. Sheffield put in that he was going to change 3
Right.
lines in.
I remember
one
that
section.
it was just, you know.
When
oh,
you
we'll
start
change these
reading
2
into
lines.
it,
Yeah, exactly.
it doesn't work that way because there's another section that doesn't allow it.
Well, and the other thing is that he was putting the burden on the planning board. He said, you can put one of these things in if the planning board allows it. And that, that's a recipe
Everybody
for
always
disaster.
wants to put the burden on us.
And I
Okay.
don't think the town meeting would.
I don't think they'd like that either, yeah.
Like that very much.
No. Anything else on the?
No, I have a question, general
Okay.
question.
Yeah, I've got a couple of general things too. Before we go to the general question on the request from the building commissioner, are we okay with taking that to town meeting? If it was changes on accessory equipment and then the commercial vehicles on the street, we need to go back to.
Can't they be on the street?
He doesn't want them on the street.
Well, I
He
think
has
we
the
should-
maintaining it, so we need to remember to talk about these
We
soon?
should discuss it.
Yes, exactly, all right. So since nothing else is scheduled for the 22nd of November, we should probably, or 21st, sorry, 21st of November, maybe we'll make that an annual town meeting zoning night.
I actually have one that will be coming forward, and that is a site plan review for Milton Marketplace.
Didn't we just do a site plan review about a year ago for Milton
A
Marketplace?
couple of years ago,
A
yeah.
couple of years ago, they want to put an addition on the 2nd floor,
Oh, okay, fair enough. We can talk about that
in
one.
the same footprint, 2nd floor.
Ed, you had a general question, then I've got a couple of things to update you guys
I just
on.
wanted to ask, Bill, is the temple still actively searching?
Yes,
Anything getting?
no.
All right, yes, Pete. and
Well, I
then
had one too, but maybe it's one of the same you do. I know that the Selectmen and Pulte
yes.
have signed their PNS.
Yes.
Do you have any, so that's something that's going to be coming up. I have no
Yes, it
idea. Do you
is.
have any idea what kind of time frame they're on for moving forward?
I have invited, Kevin Myrn actually emailed me today, and I invited him to come to our next meeting on the 10th, which he believes Pulte cannot make. So I had invited him for the 22nd, but now that that's the 21st, I'll have to confirm with him and see if that's possible. So I
Just
know they
kinda
want.
Get a presentation of what they're thinking?
Well,
or-
not only that, I haven't had a chance to read, because I just got it today, the purchase and sale, but I understand that there's a time provision within which this planning board must act in the purchase and sale.
They have to
Yeah,
have all of their permits
Permits
in
in 3
3
years.
years.
3 years. Okay, that's a little bit better than I had heard, so I don't remember that it was 1. So we'll want to make sure that we know what that timeline is.
Looking for a cluster, so
Yes, and it will be the first time that the cluster bylaw has been used. So we'll have to be on top of our game.
Whiteside Drive.
So, anything else on Pulte? If not,
On Pulte, I mean, a question that in my mind has still been out there, and I don't know. The trustees of the farm is a private entity, right? The trust is a private entity, not a public entity?
yes.
Well, it's a
So-
charity.
It's a
It's
charity.
a public charity.
But it's not a municipal entity, if that's what you're wondering.
Not
Right, and
part
that's
of the
why,
town.
that's why some of the hearing and some of the requirements of how the selectmen could do that were because it was a private thing. They weren't
The
acting
selectmen
as
were-
a municipal
yes,
body.
Exactly. The selectmen are the trustees.
Trustees.
So when they're dealing with the Governor Stoughton property, they're dealing with it as trustees and not as Board of
Not as
Selectmen.
the Board of
That's why they
Selectmen.
go in and out of public session.
Yeah,
Correct.
They're going to a public session with Governor Stoughton, they come back into the selectmen's hearing.
But for example, then, in our review of this, we are reviewing a proposal that's come from a private party. It has nothing to do with the municipality.
right.
Right.
That is correct.
But once you see the charity agrees to sell, and there is, even though they don't have control of the site or ownership of the site.
But they do have a signed purchase
They
and
will have the
sale.
purchase and sales agreement, which we generally consider to be sufficient. They are a private entity
Yes,
doing private business with
I
us.
mean, Pulte is.
Pulte is,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah,
But
I'm
we
just
will not be
thinking-
dealing with the trust itself.
Right.
And so we're not going to have to go to the probate court and get a CPRE or go to the Attorney General and convince her that it's great.
Right, Pulte is now dealing directly, or will now be dealing directly with the planning board, and we with them.
Your permit will be going to the Attorney General.
For review? Just to
No,
make sure we did it right?
That's part of, their purchase and sale, it says that they get all of their permits.
And then take them to the Attorney
And
General?
then they come in with the check. They're not gonna give us the check
Right,
until, and we have to go to the Attorney General and make sure that it meets all of their needs
right.
before the check can be.
Kind of, it's almost the reverse of 131 Elliott, where the town is not actually selling the land until 131.
permit.
for the permit.
It's the
It's
permit.
the same thing.
All right, anything else? One last item, which is, as you know, a few years ago, the State Ethics Commission put in a requirement that we had to go online and take an online exam from the State Ethics Commission. I just wanted to remind people that you have to renew that every 2 years. So if you did it 2 years ago, you now have to renew it again. I have the site here, which I can send it out. And they have, finally, they seem to have come up with a summary of the law for municipal employees. For a while, they were just, everybody had to do the state employee thing, but now it's municipal employees. So just make sure you have a look at that, and at some point do your certificates, unless you did them last year, in which case you've got another year, but those should go on file with the town clerk once you've done them. So I pass
You'll
it on.
send us a link or something?
I can
to
send
that?
you the link,
Good.
yeah, through Bill, so you can have it. So I'd forgotten it was every 2 years, and somebody reminded me, and mine was a year old. So I did mine and thought I'd better remind everyone else. So that's all I have. Anything else?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Excellent.
Good meeting.